Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Faith and Finance Forum, hosted by Catholic Finance Association and brought to you by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. I'm your host, John Knowles. I'm very excited for this week's episode. We're going to be talking with Wendy Dominguez, the president and co-founder of Innovest. Wendy, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, John.
This is wonderful. We're so honored to have you, and this is going to be a delightful conversation. Shall we start with a prayer?
Let's do.
Father, Son, Holy Ghost, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Ghost, amen. So Wendy, how are you today?
I am having a wonderful day. Thank you very much. How
Perfect.
about you?
I'm really well. Thank you so much. I'm going to share a little bit about your background with our listening audience. Wendy is the president and co-founder of Innovest. Her clients include some of the largest public and private sector retirement plans in the Western United States. Wendy is responsible for contract negotiation and through her efforts has saved clients millions of dollars. Wendy was named one of the 20 most influential women in benefit advising by Employee Benefit Advisor and was designated by Financial Times as a top 100 woman financial advisor. She has authored a number of articles on fiduciary-related matters, which have been published in several national publications. Wendy holds a Bachelor of Science in Finance and Economics, magna cum laude, and an MBA from the University of Denver. Wendy was appointed as Vice Chair of the Metropolitan State University Board of Trustees in December 2019. She was also selected to serve as the CEO Advisory Cabinet for the Colorado Community College System. She is a member of the Riemann School of Finance Advisory Board at the University of Denver's Daniels College of Business. Wendy is on the board of Colorado Trust, as well as a board member for First Bank. Wendy is a devout Catholic. She served 2 terms on the Archdiocese of Denver's Finance Council and is an active volunteer in her community. She is an active parishioner at St. Mary's Catholic Parish in Littleton, Colorado. Wendy is married to a retired Denver police SWAT officer and is the mother of twins. Wendy, this is going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for making some time for us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for your interest.
Now, you're a little bit further away from our base in the Catholic Finance Association. You're in Denver, but you know all about Wall Street, right? That's a part of your background.
Yeah, that's true. We're very familiar with that. You know, we're always based in Denver, but prior to founding our firm, we worked for a Wall Street firm that was based in the Denver metro area.
Wonderful. This is great. Well, you and I have become friends recently, but I would love for our audience to get to know you a little bit better. To the degree you're comfortable, would you just share us a little bit about your family life growing up, just a little bit more about your background and who Wendy is?
Sure. So I am born and raised in Denver, never left, went to school here, lived here. Everything is here in Denver. My parents are entrepreneurs, own currently an insurance agency in Arvada, Colorado. And I grew up as a cradle Catholic. My grandparents were very involved in, especially on my mom's side, in their church in North Denver, and had priests over our house for dinner all the time as I was growing up. So I was very fortunate to have it be such an important part of our lives.
That's wonderful. And when you were young, I mean, what were your interests? Were you an athlete? Were you like student government type? I mean, what was it like growing up?
So I was a cheerleader, which I argue with my family all the time as to whether that's an athletic sport or not, but I believe that it is. And I am a state champion cheerleader too. So we argue about that a lot too. But anyway, no, I've always been an avid sports fan. And as you mentioned, I am married to my high school sweetheart, who was a great basketball player as well. And our children, my twins have played high school basketball all the way through when they started at age 5, all the way through. My daughter's actually a college basketball player. So yes, so sports and athletics have played a big part in our lives as well.
Hey, and anyone who says that cheerleaders aren't athletes, try doing some of the moves, right? I mean,
that's right. And when I was a cheerleader, it was a little bit more relaxed than it is today. So I completely agree with you.
That's great. So you've already referenced, your strong faith. I mean, if we could, dive a little deeper on that. I mean, what are some aspects of your practice of the Catholic faith that are really unique to you? Do you have any particular devotions? Is there any spiritual practice that is very strong in your life?
So I think what's interesting is kind of my faith journey. Like I mentioned, I am a cradle Catholic, but I would call myself just, kind of going through the motions, maybe through most of my life until I was pregnant with my kids. And then I was like, boy, this is a big responsibility to try to pass on my faith to them, because I wasn't probably catechized as much as I probably should be. And so I started, getting more involved and engaged and trying to learn more. And it was about at that time, maybe a little bit after I had my kids, that I found Endow, which stands for the Education and the Nature of Dignity of Women. And it started actually here in the Denver area. And I took my first kind of class. It's like a group of women that get together and study Catholic teaching from encyclicals or writings, and it really just opened my eyes, and it was just like a wonderful experience. It really changed my whole trajectory, I would say, from there. I went to public schools. I went to a public university, or it's a private university, but it's secular university. And I'm like, you know what? I want my kids to go to a Catholic school. So we enrolled them in at St. Mary, and since then, I mean, they've gone to Catholic high schools, and so I think it really just did change the whole trajectory of our faith, just by getting involved with Endow.
So this is interesting. For those, our listening audience might not be as familiar with Endow. The basic setup is women come together and they pray together, they read the scripture together. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and maybe why it was so powerful for you?
Yeah, so the first one you start out reading is John Paul II's letter to women, and it is just it's his voice talking about how what an important role women have, no matter where they are in their vocation, whether it's a mother or in a work environment. I mean, it's just, and it was the first time I had read anything like that, because I think sometimes so I think some people's perception of the Catholic faith is that women are second class citizens. And anytime if you read what is in that encyclical in particular, there's no way you can think that.
So this is interesting. I mean, it sounds like you were raised Catholic. You were going to church on Sunday. It was it was part of your weekly routine or whatever. But it sounds like this was the turning point where you kind of went deep in all this, right?
Yeah, that's a great yes, that's a great summary of it. Yes.
That's great. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Endow. I hope some of our listeners will look into that. So Wendy,
I hope,
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
oh, I said I hope so too. I later became on the board, and I was actually a chair of the board for a little bit. It's such a wonderful organization.
Awesome. We love to hear about groups like that. So Wendy, we know that you're a practicing Catholic, and we know that you're a corporate executive and a business owner. Um, how do you spend your time outside the office, though? I mean, like when you're not doing your work, what do you do for recreation, fun, relaxation? I mean, who's Wendy outside the office?
Um, I would say, my kids have twins that are 19 that just graduated high school last year. So we were very engaged in their school activities through high school. And then, as I mentioned, my daughter is a college basketball player. So we have spent the last, really since October, November, chasing her around the country. And we went to every single one of her games. I think she played 28 games, and we were able to attend every single one. And it was just great to be able to experience that. So I would say watching basketball is something, whether I'm in the stands or watching it at home on the TV, is what I spend a lot of time doing.
And how appropriate with March Madness right around the corner, right? I
That's
mean,
right. Yeah, it's a great time to be a basketball fan right now.
what
Absolutely.
what was the longest trip you took for one of those 28 games?
Oh, let's see. So we're in Denver. We're lucky that she plays in a division that's kind of in this area. So I think 8 hours was the furthest drive. We drove up to Rapid City, South Dakota, to watch a couple of games.
That's pretty incredible. I mean, you can tell your family's very close, and I bet your daughter really appreciated that. Wow, that's amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit about your early career because you've had a fascinating run, and we're gonna spend a great deal of time on this. After college and your MBA, you were working at the major Wall Street firm. You had an important job, a good job, but then you made a really significant change, right? I mean, you were kind of on a track that a lot of people work really hard to get on, and you were achieving success with that. But you made a big shift. Will you walk us through that a little bit?
Yes, so my partner Rich and I actually were working together at this Wall Street firm here in Denver, and really kind of the catalyst, I would say, for us to start Innovest was we were working with a client, and we had recommended that they terminate one of their investment managers because they had really poor performance. And we didn't know it at the time, but this investment manager was the largest trading partner of our Wall Street bank. And so the president of our Wall Street bank called us, was upset that we were, risking firm shareholders and value. And we were potentially going to put this big client of the firm at risk by terminating them from our client. And he's, well, why are you doing that? You're not thinking about firm shareholders. You need to be. And we said, you know what, this doesn't feel right. And we can do this better if we're independent and objective. We ended up terminating that investment manager anyway. And then worked out a deal with our Wall Street firm. I think sometimes in our industry, people, when they leave firms, they do so in the middle of the night, so that they can, be the first one to contact their clients and not have the firm contact their clients. And we said, we don't want to do that either. So we worked out a situation where we were able to purchase 25 clients from our Wall Street bank and left a lot to them. And then that's how we started Innovest. We packed up a U-Haul truck full of used office furniture and some boxes and drove it across town and started Innovest. So that time there was 5 of us. And we've grown that to 55 today. There was the 25 clients I mentioned, we've grown that to about 300 today. And we started with about 250 million that we consulted to, and that's about 40 billion today. So we've been incredibly blessed. Never would have expected that this would be the outcome of that truck ride across town, but it is. We're very blessed.
Wow, incredible, incredible story. So, how long did you deliberate on making that leap? In our prior conversation, I described it as a leap of faith.
Yeah.
How long did you kind of wrestle with that? Was it a quick decision? Was it something you deliberated over a stretch of time? Will you talk about the decision making process a little bit?
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was a lot easier, honestly, for me to make then because I think I was, 26, 27 years old. So I didn't have kids at the time. I was, I maybe barely married. And so I didn't, it was easy, honestly, for us to, take some salary cuts and try something new. I wasn't though sure that I really wanted. My parents, as I mentioned, were entrepreneurs, and I saw how hard they worked and saw what was, with what that lifestyle was like. And I was really worried about, is that what I want? And ultimately, I knew it was because, it was the right people. And then it was, the right thing to do for our clients. And with that combination, you can't go wrong.
Amen. And it sounds like really the big driver of the choice was you just didn't feel right about what you were doing, right? I mean, it was really a moral question. I mean, do I want my life to be about success or do I want my life to be about significance? Doing something good, something I really believe in that I'm proud of. I mean, would you agree with that? Was that kind of the dynamic?
Yeah, I think so, because ultimately it was, we could, stay here and probably make a lot of money and, sell our clients a lot of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, is that really the best thing for them? Is that, what I want to be in that situation? And if I was receiving that advice, and we said, no, we think we can, again, do it better. If we didn't have those conflicts. So I think you're right. At the end of the day, it was well, what if, I think today it's very popular. People, leave Wall Street or firms and go out on their own a lot. But when we did it, it wasn't that many people that did it. And it was, it was scary. We were sweating payroll and I'm wondering if we were going to make it or not. It was tough, and I'm glad we're past that. But it definitely made us who we are today.
Yeah, that's kind of a key point because here we are in 2022 in the midst of this great resignation, where it's just so common for people to just walk out. That was not the case when you did this. I mean, this was a much more unusual step. I mean, what did your friends, colleagues, people you did business with, what was their reaction when you told them that you were going to jump in the U-Haul and start out fresh?
I think, they were probably, well, I mean, if they knew my partner Rich, they probably thought, oh, that's probably a good idea, because he's just he's definitely a go-getter. But I think I'm sure they were, I don't know. I was, that's a funny question. No one to my face told me it was a bad idea, but I don't know what they were saying kind of behind my back. I know that my husband was very supportive, and my family was, but yeah, I mean, again, I think it had to do with my age and our time in our careers. Again, if it was me now, it would be a much much different discussion. But it was easier then because I didn't have as many things to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, a true pioneer in that respect for sure. So, you talked a little bit about Innovest's growth, which is really spectacular. I mean, that's just incredible. I mean, when you were making this leap of faith, when you were going from the big Wall Street culture to becoming an entrepreneur and starting your own firm, I mean, did you have any idea that it was going to play out the way it did? I mean, were your goals initially just to kind of, replace your salary, make a good living, serve clients well, do good work? Did you ever think that it was going to become what Innovest has become, such a force in this space?
No, I don't think I could have ever thought that far down the road and expected that. But I do know that we worked so hard and we knew we had to grow. I mean, I think so often people forget about the growth component of a business success and just get either happy or satisfied with what they have. But it's really through the growth that you're able to hire great people and improve the tools that you offer to your clients. And if you didn't have that, I think you would just be stagnant, and then ultimately you might grow, but then then it only becomes about you. We really want Innovest not to be just about me or Rich, or I mean, we want it to be about our team and our people and the work that we do for clients, and because of that growth, we've been able to do that.
And while you have grown, I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal how far you've come. The metrics that you shared with us earlier. What do you attribute that success to? I mean, we have a lot of listeners on this podcast that are running small companies or maybe on their own that would love to get from where they're at to where you are now, Wendy. I mean, how connect the dots for us? I mean, what do you attribute Innovest's growth and success to?
Well, I mean, first, we've definitely been blessed. I think we hit a couple of, we were on a really strong trajectory because again, that was, there was 5 of us. We were, all backs against the wall, all really wanting to make this successful. So we worked really, really hard. And then that created a lot of growth. And then I think we got to a point where, and this was probably maybe even 10 years later after our initial founding, that we were like kind of reached a plateau because it was now just about us, right? It was, if we weren't it wasn't, us that are serving the clients or us that are in the sales presentation, we weren't going to win the business. And so we said, well, we can't make this just about us. We have to, make it about our team and give people more power and autonomy and still work as a team, but put them out in front and move us maybe more to the background. And so we did that. We created more committees. We, did, a lot of that. And I think then we grew again. And so I think, again, just being blessed, but I think it has been just recognizing at a point when you're starting to plateau, what what catalyst can you introduce to the equation that jumps that growth again, whether that's, a new product, a new partnership, a new, tool to sell, or what is that? But I think you have to try to create that when you see that plateau happening.
Wendy, I'm curious, this founding group, the Fab Five, going back to our basketball theme, this founding group of five, I mean, were they naturally inclined to that type of humility to say, hey, we're gonna build an organization here that's about a culture, it's about a belief system, it's about a worldview. It's not going to be an ego-obsessed, mirror-facing, franchise. We want this to be about something bigger than ourselves. Did that just kind of come naturally, or was that something that you all talked about very actively and kind of seeded into your corporate culture?
If you, so of the five, there's three of us still here. And so, I think of the three that are here, that's definitely, we knew this is what we want to do. This is the firm we want to build, and this is what we want to do forever. And I think the people that didn't have that vision, that maybe wanted to build something else they ended up going their own ways. But I think, that really is the basis, the perseverance of the three that are here today, that we're very similar in that way, I think.
So you established this culture and you were very expressive about it and very communicative about it. You were growing, so you had to bring new people in. They weren't, amongst this founding group. They came from other places. When you were making those key early hires, how did you discover people that had the right blend of the talent? Because you need talent to grow at the level you have and to have the kind of company you do, but also the cultural resonance that makes the difference between an Innovest employee and perhaps somewhere else.
And I think that's a great point, because I think that also we got to a point where we were hiring, great people. We were thrilled with their resume. They were really smart, but yet there was this missing culture component that we couldn't really put our finger on, I think. And we struggled with that. That's probably our biggest issue historically, has always been kind of the people side of any equation. But I think once we figured out that what we're in the business of doing, and we coined that, we came up with the mission of stewardship, and said that that's really ultimately what we do. We are stewards to our clients because we're legal stewards, we're a fiduciary, we're stewards to our people that work for us, and we're stewards to the community. And if we can find people that also are stewards, that want to help others, that aren't self-obsessed, that aren't just looking out for themselves, we can not only hire really smart people, but hire people that want to take care of each other, to take care of each other, but also of our clients. And ultimately, we're going to be the best client service that anyone's ever experienced. And that's, I think, another thing that we found out early on, is how important hiring is, and how important culture is, and how you have to work at it. It's almost, it's probably half of what you do. We spend our time doing is this culture side of it. And then also the other half, so maybe there's more than 100, maybe it's two-thirds, but it's doing the business that we do, being really smart investors and working really hard on client portfolios, but then at the same time building a firm full of people that want to take care of others, and want to do the best for clients.
So Wendy, the overall story is a joyful one and a celebratory one, but I'm guessing there may have been a couple hard times, right? Maybe some things that didn't work out so well, some wrong turns. Will you tell us about one of those and how you persevered through it?
Sure. I think, I think a lot of the hard times come in our business come with markets. So, we survived 2001, 2002, 2008, 2009. And then most recently the COVID, the first part of 2020. So I would say those are really hard times, because they have they're company issues, right? You have to make sure you survive as a company. You also wanted, you have clients that might be losing money and aren't happy because of that, or you're trying to give them a good advice and trying to, do the right investment things. So those are always really, really challenging, and you lose a lot of sleep, and so that's hard. But I think a couple things. We have had to, terminate clients before. Usually that doesn't happen, but sometimes either they don't treat our people well, or we come to find out something about their organization or something that doesn't fit well from us from a corporate or culture standpoint. So those are always hard decisions, and people too, you I think can be disappointed in people and how they react to certain situations. But I think, COVID was really hard on us as an organization too. I mean, in hindsight, we, navigated it beautifully, but as we were in it, the government is shutting down, people are at home, we're a very collegial group, as you can maybe gather with our stewardship talk, and had to send everybody home to work remotely, and how are we going to maintain our culture during those times, and then bringing people back who, when we wanted everyone to be back together, maybe weren't happy to be back because they were scared or concerned about their health or their family's health. So it was a really challenging time to navigate, and I'm glad hopefully those times are behind us. But I would say it always comes down to the people side of the equation, and trying to figure out how to navigate that, and to be a good Christian and a good Catholic, and honest and authentic in all of those interactions when sometimes it's hard to be.
And along those lines, I mean, you are very transparent and open about your faith. You talk about it, publicly, and you share it, freely. What does it mean to be a Catholic executive in today's day and age? And what does that term mean to you? Because you're a shining example of a Catholic corporate executive and president of a company. What does that title mean to you, Wendy?
I think it means that you're the same person at work that you are on the weekends, and that you don't act differently among your friends as you do at home. That if you're a good Christian and a good Catholic, you are honest and in that environment, again, whether it's at home, at church, or at work. And you have to walk the walk and talk the talk, and you can't just be that when it's convenient, or when people are looking or they're not looking. I think you just have to be who you are. And my faith is important to me, and everybody in the office knows it, and it's just, I think, who I am.
What do you think are some of the responsibilities that our faith challenges us to when it comes to leadership? Especially in the dimension of, human dignity, treating people well, living the golden rule, the paramounts of a moral code and behaving ethically. Has your faith been a source of strength as you've, had to, stand firm in certain moments, or uphold certain principles, or just through the daily tough decisions that go along with corporate leadership?
Yes, I think it's a great beacon, and because ultimately it's the truth, right? And you have to stand for the truth in all environments. And I remember, I think, and maybe you feel this more as a woman, especially maybe in the corporate world. But I remember being at a party once, at a work party, and somebody was talking about life issues, and they're like, well, so they said something. I said, well, yeah, I'm pro-life. And they're like, oh, you mean pro-choice? You said that wrong. I'm like, no, I'm pro-life. And I just think you have to put that out there, and not be afraid to say it.
And honestly, the people that may see things differently, they probably respect you for being so authentic and genuine with your beliefs. Going back to what you said earlier about being the same person, regardless of where you are. I mean, I can tell that, the Wendy on the weekends is the Wendy at the office during the week. And I can imagine, even for those that maybe see things a little differently, or disagree with you on certain issues or whatever, I'm sure they probably can find common ground with you because they trust you, right? Because they come to know you, and they know what to predict from you.
I hope so. I mean, that's what I hope so. I hope that is, and I do. I feel like that. But again, you just never know others' perceptions. But I think it's so important. I agree.
Wendy, we have listeners in our audience that are working in big companies or big firms. Not there's anything wrong with that. That's a great gig. That's a great life, and so many people have achieved success and contentment through it, provided for their families through it. What advice would you give to somebody that kind of had that bug in their ear, like you did all those years ago, though, where it's just like there's something else out there. I know that I could do this on my own. But I'm afraid to make the jump. I'm afraid of the lack of security. Whatever the excuses are, whatever the fear is that's holding them back. What advice would you give them as they struggle with that, really consequential decision?
Yeah, I think it's, surrounding yourself with great people, get great advice, think about it from all types of aspects, be formal, be disciplined, set up a plan, write it out, put out those metrics, write those, what is it going to mean from a revenue standpoint, in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, but plan it out and put it down on paper, talk to people about it, pray about it, and then take that step. We had a meeting this morning talking about something. We're talking about how important courage is, um, as an attribute, and it really is. I mean, no matter what it is being confident enough to just take that step, whatever that step is, whether it's asking for a promotion or asking for the business, presenting to a client or a prospect and asking for that business. It's just courage is important. And I think sometimes it's not something people talk about, or maybe I think we talk about safetyism and people, not wanting to take risks, and how that maybe is navigating itself into our culture, and how important it is to offset that by being courageous. I think it's important.
So this is really interesting. At Innovest, do you have frequent conversations around virtues like courage and what that means to the various members of the team and why it's important to your company? Do you invest time talking through topics like that on a regular basis?
Yes, we do. And we're talking about attributes now. So we've figured out these are the attributes that we look for when I hire somebody. But what are the attributes people have to have in order to progress through the firm? And trying to, because I think so many times that you focus just skills, like, or time. Like, if I spend 5 years, then I can move to this position. But I think in a firm like ours, we believe it's skills are important, sure, but it's also the attributes that you have, and how do we define those attributes so we can communicate those to people so that they know to get to the next level, these are the attributes they have to have. So we've been spending a lot of time on that, and that's why it's on the top of my mind.
Would you be willing to share some of the attributes that you're talking about that are important to success at Innovest?
Sure, let me find my piece of paper here. So we talk about hard work and perseverance and accountability and discipline and drive. We talk about honesty and integrity, which means selflessness, authenticity, humility, positivity. And then under kind of dedication to the client, we talk about being conscientious and resourceful and having situational awareness and being adaptable. So those are kind of our foundational attributes that we've defined. And now we're going through the process of saying, okay, at this level, what other things do you need? So we think everybody in the firm needs to have these attributes, those 12. But what else is there? And then I think, but we need to communicate that so people know and can, because we think that, people can learn attributes. It's maybe not something that they were born with, maybe, but they can learn them and at least and maybe magnify them within themselves.
I know you're a big fan of, like I am, of Patrick Lencioni, and he talks about how trust is such an important thing within a company. I can tell you value that a great deal at Innovest, Wendy. He teaches us that when there's high trust, conflict becomes just the way to figure things out.
Yep.
It becomes a healthy thing, it's a very positive thing. How do you talk and think about conflict at Innovest? Like, if you and a member of your team disagree on a strategy or an investment of resources, et cetera, and there's strong disagreement, principled disagreement, passionate disagreement. What would that look like at Innovest? I mean, what would be an appropriate way for that to be wrestled with?
I think we've spent a lot of time on that too. I mean, there's always differences of opinion or differences in how things should, but ultimately, if you have a true team, that those discussions happen, like you said, that you lay the groundwork so those discussions can happen and they can be passionate. But then when you leave the room, and once you get agreement, when you leave the room, everybody should be, walking that same line, singing from that same songbook, and you wouldn't know that those disagreements happen. And I think that's the way a true team works and a highly functioning team works. And that's what we try to do here is, sure, there's conflicts and differences of opinion, but once you decide on an action, everybody needs to be on board. And so we spend a lot of time in going through those discussions.
What are some of the other ways that you try to build trust, love, commitment to each other amongst the members of your team? If trust is the ultimate goal, and we can have conflicts and it doesn't do any damage because we love each other, we trust each other, and we know it comes from a joyous place, from a constructive place. How do you build that in though? I mean, I'm sure part of it's hiring, identifying people that are predisposed to that, in their prior life and their prior work. But how do you keep that muscle strong, Wendy? What are the daily, weekly, monthly practices at Innovest that keep that front and center?
I think we remind each other of our mission, which is, how do we serve our clients the best that we possibly can? And if we all come out at anything that we're working on, if we all come out with that thing in the top of our mind, I think that helps build agreement, right? If everybody's trying to do their best for the client, no matter how that happens, if that's everybody's intent, then I think we tend to be more aligned than misaligned. We also do, we work on our culture, as I mentioned before, but we do a lot of team building events here. We do a lot of community service events. We think it's giving. We think that has kind of a twofold benefit. It builds teams because you can accomplish projects together, but then in serving the community and giving back, I think also helps people just see each other maybe in a different light, as well as just giving back feels good, and it builds strong character. So I think that the strong commitment we have as a firm to giving back helps breed that. And we do at least one community service event a month, and we all participate in them. We incent people. We do it during work hours, so people don't have to take time away from their families necessarily to participate. And I think it builds a great culture. And I think again that it helps being that authentic self, that giving back, that Christian, that again, who you are on the weekends is who you are during the week, and serving the community is part of our value.
Wendy, comment a little bit about I guess the dynamic between, the aspiration of being a team player and living for the greater cause and living for your colleagues, which is clearly, where you're going with Innovest, and I think where most healthy organizations are going. I totally hear you on that. Talk about the balance between that and just merit, recognizing, hard work, recognizing people that achieve great things, that have worked really hard, that have, ran with an idea and it worked out great. How do you balance, a culture that's focused on the collective, team achievement, but also recognize when an individual has performed at an extraordinary level?
Yeah, I think giving that feedback in a public way is so important. Every Monday, we actually send out an email that highlights people's above and beyond things that they worked on the last week. And it's so often it's my partner Rich usually writes it. If he's out of town, I'll write it. But it's stuff we notice, but we don't notice everything. So what's the best part about that is when we get people in our firm that say, hey, I want you to recognize so and so because he or she helped me with this project, or we did a really great thing for a client, and here was the result. So I think that I think you're right. We work as a team, but we really need to recognize individual accomplishments and celebrate those as often as we can. And so we do that weekly formally on a weekly basis.
And think about all the good fruit that comes from that. I mean, one, it gets people thinking about heaping praise on the man or woman next to them, which is great, which is
Mhm.
healthy. When the person receives that, I mean, they're elated, knowing that it came from a peer, especially. I mean, how great is that? And to know that leadership at the company, values contributions so much that every week they're willing to share these vivid stories that clearly, demonstrate the corporation's culture. I mean, there's all kinds of good things that spring from that practice. I think that's phenomenal. That's really cool.
Yeah, we really like it, and we have been lucky enough to have won the best places to work in our industry for the last 6 or 7 years. And part of what, because I ask employees what they like about working here, and we consistently get the feedback that we care by just recognizing the individual efforts around here. So you're right, it's very important.
I love it. So a big part of Invest's business is Catholic values aligned investments, which is pretty popular these days. I mean, you don't have to look too hard to find a firm that offers that as a product. Innovest has a unique approach to this. Would you tell us a little bit about that and why Innovest is distinctive when it comes to this?
I think partially it's because of our knowledge and understanding, first of all, of Catholic screens and Catholic beliefs, that we can, and we're passionate about it, so we can easily, anything I think you're passionate about, you can execute on and easily be good at. So I think it's that, but I also think, we deal with mainly with institutions, are about half of our clients, and then high net worth individuals are the other half. And then on the institutions that want to institute a Catholic values or Christian values, we work with a lot of Christian organizations as well. It's not only determining what those thresholds are and how are we going to measure them, how are we going to select an investment product or strategy that meets those criterias. That criteria, is it in their prospectus? Is it, how do we know that they're going to do what they say they're going to do? But then I think it's also following up on the backside and then monitoring and measuring to make sure that they are really keeping that values based investment strategy in place. You'd be surprised that even we set it up. We hire investment managers that are screening their portfolio based on very specific criteria. And then when we go back and check, we identified 2 or 3 names that they probably shouldn't hold, and communicating that back to them so that they can sell it immediately. So, because mistakes do happen, especially when you're investing in hundreds of securities, but they can't happen for long. So we want to make sure that we're on top of that too. So I think it's not only being able to select great investment managers that can screen according to those values, but then monitoring to make sure that they execute on that.
And what are you screening for?
It varies by organization. I would say all organizations, all Christian and Catholic, that we are screening on life issues. So, wanting to make sure that they're not investing in any company that creates abortion drugs or has revenue based on abortion. Other things are pornography, tobacco, like military. So some of those are deal breakers, and others are let's potentially screen them out. I mean, so there's different levels that you can apply to a portfolio, whether it's hard and fast like life issues, or being a little bit more lenient with others. But it really is specifically by the organization. We have clients that are that just want to screen out one thing. We have others that want to screen out 7 things. So we're able to work on that spectrum on a custom basis.
Wendy, I'm curious, how many of the high net worth clients, when they first come to Innovest, are shocked at some of the stuff that they're investing in? They're just surprised. They never had any idea the kind of practices that were being underwritten by their portfolios.
Yeah, I think especially, those that just even, I mean, it's really interesting to me is even some Catholic organizations that say, well, we're just going to invest in the indexes and that'll be fine. We're just going to do that. I mean, I think that's they really don't know. I mean, because the indexes are based on the largest US companies or whatever index you're measuring against. And you're going to have things that you don't agree with in that portfolio. So yeah, I think people are surprised, and we're even surprised again at how some religious organizations handle that question.
And there's still some people out there that think that you have to kind of choose one or the other, performance or having a values aligned portfolio. And there's this kind of myth out there still, believe it or not. I mean, I think it's been disproven so much, but there's this myth that, if I go towards a values aligned portfolio and the screens that we're talking about, I'm going to suffer in terms of performance. That's totally false, right, Wendy? I mean, that's been disproven pretty handily now.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the market and the start and ending points that you're talking about, because you can make any argument probably just by picking a time period, meet your argument. But I was just looking at a portfolio the other day and it's screening out, I think, 10 securities, and it's a full Catholic portfolio. So, I think the 10 are, good to screen out, but it's not, I mean, to your point, I don't think would be the end of the world if you didn't own those 10. It's not going to impact your performance that much.
Yeah, good way to look at it. So, Wendy, you have a particular expertise in benefits advising. That's been a big part of your professional background. Walk us through the current lay of the land in that. What are the big trends, big news stories we should all be anticipating here in 2022 when it comes to benefits advising?
I think that what's been interesting to watch is the change in the change in administration from Trump to Biden, and at first the Department of Labor, which regulates the types of investments you can have in a retirement plan. Now this is not church-based plans. This is more kind of the big ERISA universe. So under the Trump mandate for the Department of Labor, they pretty much said that you can't consider things like morally responsible investments when you're selecting your investments. You have to select the very best investments out there, regardless of what they're buying. Now, when Biden came in, he softened that language and actually included more on the ESG, or environment, social governance side of it, to give it more latitude. So you could include those types of investments in plans. That could be a consideration. It shouldn't be your only consideration, but that can be a consideration. So we think for a lot of organizations that want to design investment menus for their participants that include morally responsible investments under the Biden administration, actually, it's much easier to do that. So I would say that's probably one of the bigger things we're seeing, is that that we have more latitude to do that as Catholics in building investment menus.
Stock market's been having a rough year so far.
It
What's
has.
your projection moving forward? Does that continue, or do we see a turnaround?
Oh gosh, I wish I knew. If I knew, I don't know, but yeah, I think it's. I mean, I think someone I was presenting with the other day was talking about the future is uncertain. Is kind of the famous quote, but it's true. I mean, none of us but God knows what's going to happen in the future. So we obviously don't. So we kind of preach be diversified, build a portfolio that can weather all kinds of economic environments, and rebalance and be disciplined in your investment process, and then rebalance when the markets take you away from that strategic allocation. We've done that for the last 25 years, and it's been a great approach for our clients, and it's been I think the best way to navigate challenging markets, because we've been through a lot and will continue to be through a lot going forward.
I know this is a little bit subjective and qualitative, but I mean, is there some way for you, be it through, the quantitative analytics, methods you've developed, or artificial intelligence, whatever tool you're utilizing, to score or assess, the perseverance and agility of a company in tough times? Do you have a way that you can determine that other than just, anecdotal observation and reading about the company's history? I mean, like, is there a way for Wendy to score that, or no?
Yeah, I wish there were. We wouldn't have to have so many people if there were, because we could just use computer models to do it. I think ultimately we believe that, it's hard work to identify investment strategies and investment managers that are going to perform well going forward. And so we spend all of our time trying to assess, risks of a total portfolio and quantify what that risk is, and then plug in investment managers who have been skillful and not lucky in creating their track records. And that takes hard work, because it takes, because the people are picking these investments, not machines. And so assessing the people and the philosophy and their process and their organization, all of that takes hard work. It's not just, unfortunately, we don't believe a black box that can do that. So so it's challenging, and investing is challenging no matter what period you live through, and we'll continue to see challenges ahead, I'm sure.
Wendy, yeah, a semi-philosophical question, I guess. I mean, like, you're the daughter of entrepreneurs, self-made people. You yourself are a successful entrepreneur. You've spent your life managing people's resources to help them live their dreams, providing great jobs for people so they can provide for their families. I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously you're deeply invested in, the American dream, the vibrancy of the American economy, and all the good things that go along with that. In this time of, I guess the threats coming, through inflation, stagnant wages, the rise in consumer prices, and a lot of the broader trends beyond that, not just the short-term stuff, in the past year or so, but I mean, just there's in some circles there's this notion that maybe our country's slipping a little bit, towards a period of atrophy or managed decline. Even there's been a lot of writing on this. You don't have to look far for that. I mean, what do you think from your seat? I mean, what are these challenges we face? Can they be overcome?
Oh yeah, I definitely think they can be overcome. I think, there's no place better than America. There's no place, no people stronger than Americans, in my opinion. And I think we have a lot to be positive for. So yeah, I truly believe that we'll persevere, we'll get through this, and we'll continue to be the driving force of the country, of the world.
Yeah, I think so too. So speaking of perseverance, you cast the vision forward for Innovest. I mean, we've talked, at length in our interview today about, how far you've come from that U-Haul truck and a dream, and a decision to live with integrity and by your beliefs. Where does it go from here? Where do you see Innovest in 2030, 2040, and beyond?
We want to continue to grow. Again, we owe it to our younger employees and our younger partners to continue to grow, and we think we will. We have a 10-year vision, and we're leaping into that. And it's about growth. It's about serving our clients well. It's about serving our people well, and continuing to be big stewards in the community. So we're excited again about the future, and about what that means for everybody here at Innovest.
Is the 10-year vision your strategic plan? Is that what that
Mhm.
is? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we've highlighted, just some probably 15 bullets about where we'll be in 10 years. We did that a couple years ago, and we're measuring our success against it, and talking about what we're going to need to hit in those hurdles, and kind of that discipline I talked about earlier. What does that mean for this number of clients and this number of employees, and how we're gonna win the next one? And so it's exciting.
Wendy, I've heard that there are companies that devise strategic plans that are well marketed and glossy and look really sharp, and then you never hear about them again. At Innovest, that is clearly not the way you react to your strategic plan. How do you keep it fresh and ripe in front of people's minds?
We have kind of monthly firm-wide meetings, and it's the first page in our monthly meeting, and we talk about it. And then we, at the end of the year, we give a kind of a report card about how did we do. Are we on track, or are we, did we stumble, or do we need to regroup completely on that mission, the piece of our mission? And so I think just by having it out there and communicating it, getting people to buy in on it, is what we need to do, and that's by keeping it out there. I think we do that.
I
But
think
it's
you do
definitely
too.
not glossy, and it's you know, a single page on a PowerPoint.
Well, that's the other thing too, is a lot of them are way too big, right? Some of these are like 78 pages. I mean, like,
Yes, yes.
who's going to
And
read
we've,
that?
yeah, I know, we've had consultants before and we've done that. We've had, you know, 35 goals for the year of 2006 or whatever. And I mean, that's just, it's, you know, looking back, that's just exhausting, you know, trying to execute on that. So we tend to have 3 to 4 goals for the year. And this 10-year strategic vision that is, you know, 10 to 15 bullet points.
So, Wendy, as we approach the end of our time together today, any final thoughts you'd like to share with our Catholic Finance Association audience, just on anything on the top of your mind, anything, any inspiration or words of wisdom you'd like to share?
Oh boy, that's a lot of pressure. No, I don't think so. I mean, hopefully they've gotten a little glimpse about what Innovest is about, what makes us different. I think it's ultimately how we treat our people and how we treat our clients is first and foremost. And at the end of the day, happy employees make happy clients. We're a really good investment firm, but we do it better because we have great people that care about clients doing the work. So.
And Wendy, if anyone would like to learn more about you or Innovest, where should they go?
Our website is a great tool for that. It's www.innovestinc.com.
Okay, I hope many will. So, everyone, this is the close of the Faith and Finance Forum with Wendy Dominguez, and we've been talking about Innovest and leadership and strategy and culture. This has been a delightful conversation, Wendy. We really appreciate your time today, and I hope people do go to your website and continue to learn more about some of the subjects we've discussed. This has been the Faith and Finance Podcast, brought to you by the Catholic Finance Association, presented by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. I look forward to hearing more from you, Wendy, continue our conversation and a conversation with our viewing audience. Everyone have a great day and good week. God bless.
Thank you, John.